Angels Care Home Health, serving Hayes and the surrounding areas, is a Medicare-certified home health agency providing quality skilled nursing and restorative therapy services to patients in their homes.
They're polite. I mean, they just take the time for you.
Angels Care is there to help 24 hours a day, and all services are covered 100% by Medicare for patients who are eligible.
I like the Angels for what they've done for me.
Angels Care Home Health. We serve patients.
Eagle Community Television presents Community Connection with your host, Mike Cooper.
Hello and welcome again to Community Connection from Eagle Community Television. Thanks for watching. Thanks as always to the producer of our series and editor, Jeff Durall. We're at the Kansas Veterans Cemetery at WaKeeney with cemetery manager Heidi Goff, who also manages the cemetery at Fort Dodge as well. We're going to talk about the Kansas Veterans Cemetery at WaKeeney with Heidi, our community connection. Well, let's begin with a history, Heidi.
Okay. The cemetery here at WaKeeney was opened in 2004 with our dedication on September 10th of 2004.
Tell me a little bit about the cemetery itself and how it came to be. Was this directed by a federal agency, statewide? How did that work?
Okay, we are a state-operated veteran cemetery. There are 4 in the state of Kansas. Fort Dodge was our first one in 2002, then WaKeeney, then Winfield, and then Fort Riley. We are federally funded in the beginning. They were the ones that the federal government actually built the buildings on our property and gave us our initial equipment, and then now we are state operated. There's also 2 federal cemeteries that are operated in the state of Kansas at Fort Leavenworth and Fort Scott. The reason why the state-operated cemeteries came to be is that the federal government did studies back in the 70s and realized that we were going to be losing World War II and Korean vets at a pretty high rate in the future. And so they wanted all veterans to have the opportunity to be placed in a veteran cemetery, and specifically within 90 miles of a veteran cemetery. So in order for the federal government to do that, it was more cost effective to allow the states to operate these veteran cemeteries. We still get inspected by the federal government. We still have to follow the directives of the federal government, but we are state operated. The state of Kansas was very aggressive in the very early on when this came about, and we are one of the few states that have 4 state operated veteran cemeteries.
And the idea being to try to keep those as close as possible to the veterans, hence the 90-mile distance, if you will, or close to it, supposedly, anyway.
Yes.
And the WaKeeney Cemetery includes what? What's here?
We have our administrative building where we welcome guests and people come in and we can give them information about pre-certifying and that sort of thing, or scheduling burials here. We also have a shop area where we have 2 maintenance people at each of our cemeteries that help to maintain the grounds and also to complete burials. We also have gardens here. We have in-ground cremation area. We have a columbarium wall where urns are placed in niches. We also have a scattering garden where ashes can be scattered out here, and we have a memorial wall for that. And then we also have the traditional casket burial areas, and we have double concrete liners that are already buried in the ground, so you do not need to purchase vaults like you would at a private cemetery.
And you also have the area where the family members can gather for a full service or partial service as they choose.
Yes, we have a shelter area at all of our cemeteries where we set up chairs, and that's where we would actually have the services. Sometimes it could be just the traditional gravesite type services, and other times some people will have their full service here if they do not have a church or a funeral home where they actually have the service.
Now, are all service members eligible for interment?
Any active service members who have an honorable discharge are qualified to be buried here. And if they are served in the National Guard or the Reserves, if they were called to active duty at any point besides their training time, or if they have served for 20 years, they also can be buried at a veteran cemetery.
So you have some strict guidelines that you have to adhere to there.
Yes, and those are that we follow the federal guidelines. So if you are eligible to be buried at a federal cemetery, you would be eligible to be buried at a state-operated veteran cemetery.
And family members can choose the type of service that they would prefer?
Yes, they do. Sometimes we work with the funeral homes. Other times we work directly with the families to choose what they would like for their service. If they need assistance with getting an honor guard or getting the flag or those sort of things, I can also help them with that.
How about numbers? How many are interred here?
Presently, we have 375 buried here. That includes veterans and dependents, and we have over 1,000 pre-certified for burial here.
Well, talk about the pre-certification process and how this helps family members, Heidi.
The pre-certification process is really quite simple, but it's extremely helpful in the time of need so that families are not searching for documents such as marriage certificates or discharge papers. It's just a short pre-cert form that we have you fill out that just has basic information about the veteran, and if there's a spouse or a dependent child that would be buried with them, we would also need their information. We need a copy of a marriage certificate if the veteran is married, and then we need a copy of the actual discharge, the DD-214 for a veteran.
So you actually gather together all of the necessary
Yes.
paperwork that's done in advance so family members don't have to scramble at a time of sorrow.
That's correct. Yes.
Tell me about the guest book. I was going through the guest book there, and there are literally people from all over the country who stop in.
Yes, actually, I think that's guest book number 5 since we've opened, but it's really interesting to see. Many people come here from all over the country. They might have been here for funerals or maybe just stopping off of interstate and just would like to see the facility. We do not have a residency requirement in the state of Kansas at veteran cemeteries. So there may be people who have had roots at one time in northwest Kansas, but they have since moved to Arizona or Florida or California, and they are also placed here.
You have a wonderful way for people who come in to be able to find those burial sites too, don't you?
Yes, we have a grave locator that's in the front of the building, and people can come to there and type in the name of their loved one that they're searching for, and it'll give an actual plot number that they can go to. On the in-ground cremation area, in the casket area, on the back of the headstones, that plot number is actually engraved on the top, so it makes it a little easier for people to find their loved ones' graves.
And what about hours? When are you open here at the site?
We are open Monday through Friday from 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. and we're closed on the weekends and holidays.
Now, what about a website for folks can access the cemetery?
Yes, we have a website at www.kcva.org, and that is for the whole Kansas Commission on Veterans Affairs, but there's specifically information you can get there on each of the veteran cemeteries in the state of Kansas.
Now, there are traditional times when veterans are honored. Memorial Day, Veterans Day, et cetera, some of the other holidays, even 4th of July in some instances. Are there special days when the site is catering to families and veterans and those who are buried here?
Yes. Specifically right now, we are working on our Wreaths Across America ceremony that will take place on Saturday, December 17th at 11 o'clock. Right now, we are collecting donations for $15 for wreaths. During that service, we invite family members to place wreaths on their loved ones' graves. If they are not present, then we have American Legion Riders, Knights of Columbus members, and different organizations that will place those wreaths for them. Then also, we have our biggest service of the year is our Memorial Day service. We can have anywhere from 500 to 700 people here. It's quite an event. And we really just go all out for that. And that's always on Memorial Day at 10 o'clock. Then also for Veterans Day, we do honor our veterans. We place flags on all of the graves, the veterans' graves, and have our avenue of flags up. We do not have a service specifically, but we do honor them on Veterans Day.
I would assume you probably have some visitors during that time.
Oh,
too.
quite a few visitors during that time, and the cemetery always looks beautiful with all the flags.
Talk a little bit more. We have a flyer here that for folks who might have more interest that is available here at the Veterans Cemetery at WaKeeney that talks about the wreath sponsorship form, so folks can actually sponsor a wreath for individuals or for entire family members in whatever donation they would choose then.
Yes, we have sponsorship forms here at the cemetery. It's $15 a wreath. There's different corporations level that people may donate, or family level, according to what people would like to donate. We have always such a generous outpouring here in this area for the wreaths, and we're always been able to place a wreath on every single grave within our cemetery. If we do receive any more donations above what we need, we then take them down to our old Soldiers' Home Cemetery at Fort Dodge, where there's 1,000 veterans that are buried there that date clear back to the Civil War. And between Fort Dodge, the state-run cemetery, and WaKeeney here, we're usually able to place at least 400 to 500 wreaths on that cemetery as well every year.
That's an amazing outpouring of
Yes.
remembrance. It really
Yes.
is. Talk about the old Soldiers' Home donation list there, would you?
Sure. At the Fort Dodge, we have the Kansas Soldiers Home. It is a place where veterans can live in all different types of care, whether it be living in individual cottages, whether it be more intensive care in a nursing home type setting. It's almost like its own little city in itself. And it's a wonderful place for veterans, especially those with low incomes that couldn't go to place. So people in this area, especially at Christmas time, we collect donations down there. We have a list here at the cemetery. But specifically, they need toiletries, underwear, T-shirts, socks, and things like that. And if anyone would like to make a donation, we make several trips at least every month. We go down to the Soldiers' Home, and when people have donated clothing or those type items, and we take them down to the Soldiers' Home.
It's another way to support veterans then.
That's right. And if they have over an abundance, again, we'll send those on even to Wichita to some of our homeless veterans who may need clothing and coats and that sort of thing too.
Which is kind of a sad situation in
Yes.
itself, that we have veterans who have served this country that sometimes find themselves in need.
That's correct.
Tell me a little bit about one final operation here that takes place through the Department of Veterans Affairs out of Washington, and that's the Veterans Medallion that's available for order.
Yes, we have information about that here at the Veterans Cemetery, so if you'd like further information, I'd be happy to help people with that. But what it is a program for those that might have a private headstone in a private cemetery, but they would like to mark that headstone as that they're a veteran. So we have different sizes of medallions that can be placed on there that will let people know what branch of service that you served in and that you are a veteran, and those can be placed directly on a private headstone. Also, I have information if there is an unmarked veteran's grave. We can also give you information on how to order a government headstone in a private cemetery.
And once again, your hours here at the Kansas Veterans Cemetery at WaKeeney.
Are Monday through Friday from 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m.
And one more time on that website, if you would, Heidi.
Okay, it's www.kcva.org.
The cemetery manager of the Kansas Veterans Cemetery at WaKeeney, Heidi Goff, is our community connection.
Angels Care Home Health, serving Hayes and the surrounding areas, is a Medicare-certified home health agency providing quality skilled nursing and restorative therapy services to patients in their homes.
And the angel care nurse come to see me once a week.
Angels Care is there to help 24 hours a day, and all services are covered 100% by Medicare for patients who are eligible.
Angel care has helped to stay home.
Angels Care Home Health. We serve patients.